Teenage years are a part of life, whoa, with emotions super high, whoa, Colleen Hoover can't write for shit, whoa, and her son seems like a dick. What are McKenna, Grace, and Mason Thames doing in a film like this? They've got bright futures, don't let this drag them down. Allison Williams, Dave Franco, Willa Fitzgerald, Scott Eastwood, Clancy Brown, what have you seen with this Hoover wet dream? Whoa! Regretting You is the latest adaptation of a Colleen Hoover novel. She did It Ends With Us. If you liked It Ends With Us, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Actually, if you liked it, great. I don't know why. The movie adaptation was terrible. So was that intro, but my musical intros are intentionally terrible because I can't carry a tune in a bucket. Speaking of buckets, another Colleen Hoover slop bucket story has approached your local cinema. I watched Blue Moon and then I watched this, depending on what order you see those particular reviews in. So this was directed by Josh Boone, who did Stuck in Love, this movie's Stuck in the Muck, as well as The Fault in Our Stars and The New Mutants. And this was written by Susan McMartin, who's done television and also did the story for Son-in-Law. I'm not joking, by the way. Go to her IMDb page. Check that out. IMDb. Easy for me to say. I'm flustered because I just sat in the theater for 2 fucking hours watching Regretting You because some of y'all wanted me to watch this. Okay, this has a loaded cast. We have Allison Williams from Get Out and the Mithrigan movies. The fact she was in Megan 2.0, and then in this, she needs a better agent. I mean, I'm sure she got paid well, but still. McKenna Grace, who was in the 2 most recent Ghostbuster movies, is a bright, talented, very, very gifted young actress. She was the only good part of Afterlife, to be perfectly honest, and then they nerfed her goddamn role in Frozen Empire. But she's been good in other stuff. She understands horror. She understands, drama, that kind of stuff. She can do it all. She really does have a super bright future. So does Mason Thames, who was in Black Phone 1 and 2. Black Phone 2 is terrible, by the way. He's also in the live-action adaptation of How to Train Your Dragon. Dave Franco was recently in Dave Franco was in Together. He's been in good stuff. Why? Just why? For what reason? What dirty laundry was held over their goddamn heads? This movie smelled like a pile of dirty laundry. Clancy Brown is in this. Willa Fitzgerald, I thought her role in the Scream television series was off. Scott Eastwood, he's also had work. But Willa Fitzgerald from Strange Darling, one of my favorite movies of this decade. Definitely one of my favorite horror movies. So, we basically start out with an intro. I'm just going to say this isn't a spoiler, but this is the message I saw before. It's Allison Williams, McKenna Grace, and Mason saying, everyone poured their heart and souls into making this. I very much fucking doubt that, especially with the opening scene. The opening scene was so goddamn mind-numbingly stupid and just baffling, I couldn't take the movie seriously after that. I didn't really have high hopes for this. And I recognize I am not the target audience for a movie like this. I hated It Ends With Us, mainly because the movie took its real world, not the one that hassles Rob Thomas, but the real world situations, that theme of abuse and relationships, and basically just turned it into a ridiculous slop fest. And just, they tried to make it empowering, but not empowering. At the same time, this has to do with basically a secret that is revealed that shatters the lives of various people. If you've read the book, you know what it is. I'm keeping it as spoiler-free as possible, but basically, you have Morgan, played by Allison, who is with Chris, played by Scott Eastwood, and they have a child, Carla, played by McKenna Grace. Virtually unrecognizable with blonde hair, by the way. She's also sprouted like 5 inches. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's just the way it was shot, but I'm like, oh, look, she's this little kid, with this little nerdy kid with brown hair and stuff like that, and now she's suddenly, just, blonde hair and whatever, just in coming-of-age rom-com things. I don't know, it's just weird. Just weird. Mason, though, he has been a busy, busy boy. He plays a man named Miller, or a little boy named Miller, who is taking care of his grandpa, Clancy Brown, who they have a chance meeting, but they know each other, and then basically bingo bango, a romance ends up developing. And also we have Jonah, played by Dave Franco, and Jenny, played by Willa Fitzgerald. Not the same Jenny that gave Forrest Gump the HIV, disease, as it were. I don't know if I actually can say what else it is, but nevertheless, they have a kid together, and everything seems so fine. By the way, these four have known each other for so goddamn long. And then something happens that shatters the worlds of these respective people. Yeah, so this movie's dumb as hell. This is one of the worst goddamn movies I have seen this year. I didn't think it was going to be as bad as it was, and here's why it was bad. Because every bit of this is manufactured. Every single bit. Every bit of dialogue, every human emotion is an assembly line movie. It is embarrassing to watch, especially with the talent on screen. I don't really care about the screenwriter. I don't wish that. But Colleen Hoover, arrest her for crimes against humanity for stuff like this. And there was another one. I don't even remember the name of the title. Memories of Him or something. Remembering Him. Or whatever. Reminders of Him, I think is what it was. It has, I believe, Micah Monroe and Tyreek Winters, who was in Him, and also the I Know What You Did Last Summer movie. I think that's it. Comes out in March. I'm sure you all will want me to go see that, assuming that I make it to March before locking myself in an institution because of stuff like Regretting You. Yeah, I'm really not getting much into the plot about this because there's not a plot. Like, this movie, it just centers around one thing that if it was told, sure, we wouldn't have much of a movie. A lot of issues would not have happened in this. And people go from just like one side to the other with their emotions. And yes, losing people close to you would be one thing. But this isn't even that. This is not people losing their emotions and, oh shit. No, this is people just being really goddamn stupid. And just being caricatures. Cardboard cutout caricatures. Just, it's so obvious where it's going. And it almost seems like we're getting chapter breaks here, but not even good chapter break. It's like we go with one chapter break, and then we go to a completely tonally different movie. The movie didn't know what it wanted to be. Mason and McKenna, bless them. They are two bright actors, but they can only do so much. This will not stick to them, though, and they will do just fine. Black Phone 2 is definitely something to stick to Mason because, oh boy, geez, that movie is a fucking fiasco. But this whole thing, this whole production, like everything about this is like Hallmark, Pure Flix, Netflix originals, Human Centipede together. It's just, there's so many of these rom-com, these coming-of-age things that just are the exact same. And this has a checklist. A bingo card, whatever the fuck you want to call it, where literally you can guess exactly where stuff's going, and nothing, there's no stakes, there's nothing that will, this big reveal that ends up happening that we know what it fucking is. I mean, by the way, they reveal it in the trailer, so if you have seen the trailer, you're probably wondering why I'm like dancing around on it, but they don't exactly outright say it, except if you saw the extended trailer. The thing about this movie is, I'm ashamed that this gets released wide. And I mean, I want stars to get paid, and I want people to do well, and I want the crew and everybody to have, stuff on their resume to succeed. But look at the list of executive producers and producers. A lot of fingers in the goddamn pie here. I'll let you figure out whose finger was in whose pie. Jabroni. But that's the thing about this movie. It is in theaters because of the fact that It Ends With Us made a shit ton of money, like $350 fucking million. For whatever reason. That was one I missed in theaters. I'm really glad I did, because I probably would have wanted to rip the screen down because of how bad it was. But this is just such an abysmally repugnant, just repetitively slopped out movie. Like, there are parts that could have worked. Had this been a little bit shorter, maybe it would have at least gotten over quicker. But just all the star power, totally wasted. Josh Boone, kind of missed the goddamn mark here. She is no Nicholas Sparks. And even he has issues. That being said, I am going to get into spoilers, but I just hate to rip this movie apart. I really fucking do. Except I kind of also don't. Because I don't want to rip apart the stars. I don't want to rip apart the crew that worked hard on this. I'll rip apart Colleen Hoover, who absolutely deserves every bit of scorn that she gets. Read up about her and her son. You will understand why I say that shit. But that being said, I'm going to get into spoilers. In theaters right now if you want to check it out. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. So, you had Morgan with Chris, and you had Jonah with Jenny. By the way, the opening scene that I talked about, that I didn't spoil, had Allison Williams and Dave Franco playing teenage versions of themselves. Willa Fitzgerald, even doing that is a little bit of a stretch. A little bit. And I'm not even saying Allison and Dave look old. They just don't look like they could be teenagers. This is not one of the Jason movies. They show a clip of one of the Jason movies. The third or the fourth one, I'm not totally sure. I think it might, well, maybe it was the fifth one. But that being said, they're playing teenage versions of themselves and this kind of stuff. And at first, it was, I believe it was Jonah was with Morgan and Scott was with Jenny. And then they switched them around, basically, as I said earlier. They play teenage versions of themselves. And then McKenna Grace is driving along, sees Mason. He's trying to move this city limits sign. And the reason is because his grandpa is sick, and his grandpa is one member of the Wyatt Six. He wants him to be able to get pizza delivered, but it's outside the city limits. I think the zoning would be able to figure that out, and the pizza place would get in trouble. And Dylan's taking care of city property, but whatever, it's fine. Or Miller. Dylan's the name of the town. I kept calling him Dylan for some reason. But yeah, he's a guy that is dating a girl named Shelby, but it's obvious that him and Clara have, chemistry. And I will say that if this had been something just about Mason and McKenna developing their relationship on screen, I could have bought that because they tried to make it work. There just wasn't enough, of that. There just wasn't enough good to offset the bullshit. But with, this being adapted from a Colleen Hoover, novel, it couldn't fucking work at all. So, essentially, everything's good. Jenny and Jonah have a kid, and everything's fine. Everything's fine. They have a little infant. Morgan's being a good aunt, as it were. The surrogate aunt. And then suddenly, and we find out about some of Claire's friends, like Lexi and stuff like that. Mason has a friend named Efren that him and Lexi end up together, despite the fact I could have swore Lexi's character was gay, but I don't care. By the way, love is love. Who cares what people are? I couldn't get whatever. It's fine. By the way, lots of AMC plugging here. Lots of AMC sponsorship stuff. They had at one point near the end of the movie where they showed the amount of screens, and one said 21 to 24. There are 24 Plex movie theaters. The biggest I think we have here is 16 to 18. Like, seriously, at least within driving distance of me that I'm willing to drive. 24 is insane. But yeah, lots of AMC plug-in here. They must have paid handsomely for this. It's not as egregious as War of the Worlds with the Amazon stuff. But still. So, essentially, Chris ends up saying to Carla, hey, you're blocking me in. Let me out, this kind of stuff. And then suddenly stuff's going on, and she's texting Jenny, her aunt, about some stuff happening. And, there was, a certain thing that happened in her past. Wait, tell me more. But then she's not hearing from her. And suddenly it's a car wreck. And Morgan gets a call that her husband was in a car wreck. She's at the hospital. She's got the baby, that kind of stuff. She was watching the baby while Jenny did whatever. Went back to work. Went to kill Kyle Gallner in Strange Darling again. It's a terrific movie. A lot better than this. But then suddenly Jonah shows up and says, oh my God, what are you talking about? They said Jenny was in the accident. Oh wait, let's put two and two together. Yeah, they were having an affair. That's what it was. That was the big reveal. But the thing is, she being Morgan, did not want to reveal that to Clara Mortensen. She didn't want to reveal it to her. Because if Clara Mortensen was around, you know what they'd say? Clara, what are you doing? You've been dead for about 50 years. But that being, I think she died in the 70s. I actually don't know. Maybe she lived into the 80s, and then I wouldn't feel bad. If you don't know who Clara Mortensen is, you are confused. If you do, you are wondering how that got referenced here. But that being said, McKenna, meanwhile, kind of hooking up with Mason, kind of not. The romance could have worked. It could have. That could have at least been one thing to hang our hat on. But no. Everything's manufactured with that. He ends up basically breaking up with his girlfriend. Shelby, I think. By the way, Shelby Oaks is out in theaters also. I did a review of that. Support independent filmmakers. And go watch something like that. I mean, whether you like it or don't like it, I'm not saying it's the best thing going today. The NWO. No, I'm kidding. But at least it would be supporting an independent filmmaker. Because Josh Boone will get other opportunities, but we need other... Nevertheless, essentially, Mason's character, Mason Miller time, wants to go to film school. It's going to be tough because he wants to take care of his grandfather. His grandfather, by the way, he keeps making a reference. Oh, you can have my heir when I pass away. More on that here in a bit. And meanwhile, Clara wants to go to that school also. I forget what she's studying, drama. I think she wants to be an actress. McKenna, you're already ahead of the curve on that. So good job there, young lady. And meanwhile, there was something referenced with Jonah that he ran away because of something. Like back when they were teens. When they were 30-somethings playing teens. And then he showed back up at one point. He's trying to be there for Jenny. But then he shows up. He seems to be doing okay. They track down, Scott Eastwood's car, Chris's car, and she beats the shit out of it. Hits it with the backpacks, beating it up and everything, stuff like that. Because it was left at a hotel because they're having an affair, this kind of stuff. Clara, meanwhile, is not aware of this. She's hanging out with Miller. And bingo bango, bit of a romance, that kind of stuff. Which would have been sweet if the movie wasn't so manufactured and stupid. But, and by the way, Morgan does not approve of the fact that she is dating Miller because, he's not the type of guy you want to go with and that kind of stuff. Even though Jenny was like, you don't want to be with him just because you don't want to be with him if he's with somebody. Just don't do that. That was a line she referenced earlier, by the way, which, boy... It's no wonder that she said that, and then Morgan says, sometimes it's scary how good of a liar you are. Oh, hint, hint, hint. So, essentially, what they end up doing is we get this split, stuff going on. And Jonah is freaking out about the kid because he says when he saw the kid smile, he has Chris's smile. He looks like Chris because it's Chris's kid. Because this affair has been going on for a while. Long enough for a kid to be produced. And considering the kid's an infant, probably, I'm not necessarily certain, probably 6 months or something, I'm not sure. It's been going on at least for a year and a half. Probably been going on a lot longer than that. Because Morgan's bright idea is to destroy the house and everything while she's picking fights with her goddamn... she's picking fights with Clara, and Clara's sneaking out to be with, Miller and stuff like that. And, all this, it's just a melting pot of stupid. And Morgan won't tell about this whole damn thing. And that's causing strife and stupidity. She's taking out cabinets. McKenna just sitting there, applying for school. She gets in, and... she's afraid. She was afraid to tell Miller because she just found out about it. And Miller also had planned a really nice birthday party thing for her, where they ran out a private screen to watch Clueless. Oh, look, Paul Rudd's in there. Oh, Paul Rudd was her dad in Ghostbusters Afterlife. Oh, do you get it? Am I just being too harsh? Have movies just passed me? No movie has haven't passed me by. This movie just sucks. But that being said, Morgan and Jonah do eventually end up hooking up because Jonah realizes that the reason he left was because he couldn't be with her, and he regrets it, that kind of stuff. Now, Clara had this great date, and suddenly ends up date so to speak, and then sees that Jonah and her mom are kissing. Oh my God, this is so terrible. She locks herself in a room, and she decides not to wait till prom. She has Mason Miller show up, and they're gonna do the nasty, and she's gonna lose her virginity to a guy she likes. But then she starts crying, this kind of stuff, and it ends up kind of spiraling where it looks like he's gonna leave her, but then he realizes, you know what, I'm justified in being upset, but I'm going to stay here until she falls asleep. Then he falls asleep with her. And then Morgan gets upset because a young man, is in her daughter's bed and this kind of stuff and whatever. This movie's limping along to its fucking conclusion. And all stuff eventually leads to Jonah finding, love letter stuff, while they're deconstructing cabinets and everything. Find some love letter stuff between Jenny and Chris that was in a toolbox. It's a good thing that Morgan never needed to look for a screwdriver or a hammer or anything. Good place to hide those. Or maybe just don't cheat on your significant other. This is coming from me, by the way. Coming from me. So, trust me, as somebody with experience on both sides, you don't want to be doing that. Especially with married people. It wasn't my marriage, so I don't fucking care. Nevertheless, enough about my dirty laundry. Morgan realizes that she needs to tell Clara. She ends up telling Clara, finally, and Clara says, so they were having an affair for how long? This kind of stuff and everything. Okay, that sucks, but I didn't want you to feel like that your dad was this terrible person because of this, but it's also good for her to know. And then Jonah and Morgan are together. Lexi and Efren, yes, those two are together. Willa Fitzgerald is dead, seemingly. The strange darling motif continues. Scott Eastwood just went, also died because I guess they couldn't keep their affairs in order, literally, and crashed their car. So it was basically up to these two that were meant to be together to begin with to find that. And Morgan then also says to her daughter, there's no scenario where I wouldn't do it all over again because I got to have you. And no regrets. There was one point when, Dave Franco was saying to Allison Williams, I regret not, going with you. Oh, he said regret. He said the thing. He said it. He said the fucking thing. So, Mason basically... Mason Miller brings McKenna to, the goddamn yard. It is after a birthday party that actually was a little bit awkward and silly, where her and Lexi end up visiting the grave of her aunt and her dad before she found out about this stuff. But anyway, so there's this gathering in the goddamn yard. And it's to show a film that was made where basically it was Mason Miller filming a whole bunch of stuff and filming her on the stage in a play, filming her just in general, like filming other stuff and everything. It was like a prom proposal thing. And it finished off with the sign moving. And if you come back here, I'll know we're meant to be together and I'll break up with my girlfriend. If not, then we aren't meant to be together. Oh, you're coming back. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yes, and that ends with, pomp and circumstance and all that stuff and everything. Oh, and then they end up moving the road sign enough to have the pizza delivered to the grandpa's place. Oh, yeah, and the grandpa, by the way, revealed, yeah, grandson, you say you can't go to school. I said, when I die, I'm going to give you my heir. Oh, I have a plot of land in, somewhere in Union Square where You could use it, we could sell it, and I could have plenty of money. We could do all this and everything. And convenient. The movie's just a series of conveniences. I hate this. I hate Colleen Hoover for, existing in this world. A world she doesn't belong in. Fuck you, Colleen Hoover. How dare you? How dare you, you dumb broad? F. Regretting You gets an F. I think it's top 10 worst of the year. I have watched over 250 movies so far. God, I hate it. I hate it so much. I went on way too long. Agree, disagree with what I said? Like, share, subscribe. Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Rant, and until we do not have to see another Colleen Hoover movie again, grammatically that makes no sense. Happy trails to you.